Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Toasted Tale podcast. My name is Jim, and today I want to look into a story that's popped into my newsfeed that I feel, in some way, affects us all. I must admit that when I saw news stories earlier this year of Britney Spears' father being her conservator, I really didn't know what it meant. It's not really a term that I've come into contact with, but when you started hearing about restrictions on an individual due to them being in a conservatorship, it really made me take notice. And to my shame, it's only now when it's reappeared in my mind that I thought to do an episode on it. The stories that came from articles written about conservatorship are quite terrifying. They serve a really useful function in society for individuals who are either too old to look after themselves or who don't have the mental capacity anymore to take care of their daily needs. But for those who are of sound mind and aware of their restrictions, it can be quite terrifying. This happened with Britney Spears, the pop star, now aged 39, who, as NBC News' article on September the 29th, 2021 reports, has been able to have her father, Jamie Spears, conservatorship over her life suspended. And let's be clear, the power a conservator has over someone is quite far-reaching. After all, it's usually reserved for someone to look after a loved one who is in a coma, mentally challenged, has Alzheimer's disease or a form of dementia, a stroke, or has suffered a brain injury. A conservator therefore has the ability to take care of someone's finances when they're not able to make these decisions, and also help them make life decisions that they feel they are unable to make themselves. Now, to understand this particular situation, we need to look into Britney Spears' past, around 2007 and 2008, where, in the limelight, in the tabloids, she started acting a bit peculiar, a bit unusual. Not only did she recently divorce her husband, which people are allowed to do, but there was a series of public incidents that raised concern about her mental welfare, such as when she shaved her head and hit photographers' cars with an umbrella. She was twice admitted in 2008 to hospital under a temporary psychiatric assessment ruling, including after an incident in which she allegedly refused to surrender her children in a standoff involving police. Now, this did result in her losing custody of her two children, all of which is incredibly traumatic for someone. A temporary conservatorship was established around this time for her mental health and was gradually extended to cover over the next decade. And I can understand wanting to care for someone you love. If they are having a very difficult time, maybe even having a mental breakdown, then you want to put supports in place. In the years under the conservatorship, Britney Spears has released 3 albums, held a successful Las Vegas residency, and made numerous television appearances, including a stint as a judge on the US X Factor. And so it gets me wondering, how much mental impairment was she having during those years, when she was working herself very hard, to the bone sometimes, to carry on her craft? Does someone who's able to manage all of that sound like they are unable to look after themselves? I think even a parent who is overly cautious may struggle to come up with the proper evidence to support that. And what of the conservator? Well, her father, Jamie Spears, a good father would have his daughter's best intentions in mind at all times. But I don't think Jamie Spears is a good father. Apparently, Jamie has collected at least $5 million from his daughter over this time. Around half of this has come from the monthly payments of $16,000 Britney has had to pay her father since February 2009 as part of the conservatorship agreement. And this is not even counting what she has to pay for her father's office, legal fees and security. On top of this, Forbes reports that he also took a 1.5% cut of the gross ticket sales from her 4-year Las Vegas residency. And what makes this even more disturbing is Spears' allegation that she was forced to perform in Las Vegas against her wishes while sick. And, in other words, she was made to perform against her own well-being to ensure that the money kept rolling in so that everyone who had a stake in her career could still get paid. It seems you had a perfect storm. Britney Spears, an individual with tens of millions of dollars, pushed in at the tender age of 16 to one of the most cutthroat industries around. And this was of course by her parents, including her father, Jamie. She grows up in this world at a time where tabloid and pop culture scrutiny is at its highest. It could be argued that the environment she was in contributed heavily to the mental struggles she had in 2007 and 2008. And then at her peak and then downfall, the hyenas and vultures arrive, taking away this person's ability to control her assets. Suddenly, there's a $50 million prize up for grabs. Her father jumps in and doesn't have the best intentions. For him, it appears as if it's all about control and the ability to keep getting paid. And if this sounds a lot like abuse, then you may be onto something. Conservatorship abuse is quite common, and there are lawyers who specify in defending those who are suffering from it. One of the most common types involves financial exploitation. A common way for someone to take advantage of a individual who's either older or unable to look after their own situation is to take the assets they have as you have full control over them, and rather helping your conservatee by making bill payments, paying for groceries, managing appointments, they use it to benefit themselves. Some of the claims sound outright bizarre though. Britney has told people before that she was forced onto birth control by her father to prevent her from having any more children. And also, someone worth millions was only given a $2,000 weekly stipend. And when asking once to buy a pair of shoes in a shop window, was told no by her dad because they were too expensive. It's things like this that make you question the intentions behind the people pulling the strings, and whether it was more about control than concern for her well-being. And while for the last 3 years Britney Spears has been fighting against this conservatorship, it's not an easy thing to reverse. Once an order like this has been put in place, the onus is on the conservatee to prove that they are now sound of mind, rather than the conservator to prove that the individual they are looking after continually needs their support. Therefore, someone who is in control of someone can just sit back and let the good times roll in. As the conservatee as well, you'll probably need a lawyer to formulate your strategy and go about ending this. And what do you need for a lawyer? Money. And what is one of the major things you don't have control of in this situation? Your finances. Oftentimes you'll need to find a lawyer who is happy to take a chance of not getting paid at the end of all this, in the hope that they can overturn the ruling, and once their client has access to their finances, get paid for their services. All of these are many barriers to removing what is meant to be a protection, but if maliciously managed, is clear abuse. It seems as if Britney Spears is going to get some more of her autonomy back and control over what she owns. And this is great news. But it does raise the question of conservatorships in general. With 1.3 million people in the US alone under a conservatorship, with about $50 billion in assets held by these individuals, you have to wonder how many other situations like the one with Britney and Jamie there are around. And however terrible the Spears situation was, you have to understand that they had means themselves, and those from less privileged backgrounds will not have the exposure or funds to fight a conservatorship like this. Amendments to the law surely must be made, and in California specifically, State Assembly member Evan Lowe has introduced legislation that would require non-professional conservators, such as Britney Spears' father, to register with the state if they are overseeing estates greater than $1 million, and mandate that professionals involved in conservatorships be transparent about their fees, and create policies to fine or revoke the licenses of conservators who are not acting in the best interests of the individual. A second bill would aim to address the gap in due process by guaranteeing conservatees or proposed conservatees the right to counsel and allowing them to choose a lawyer. This bill would expand the duties of court investigators who are supposed to review the cases and establish regular reviews of conservatorships for adults with developmental disabilities. This is surely a good start, and very important as well. Anyone can have troubles in their life or have a life event that changes the way they act in the world. We may not always think about it, but if something was to happen to us where we needed support at a time in our life, would you want to be faced with a situation where, after the fact, your autonomy and control over your life is severely reduced? I myself wouldn't, and so robust and thorough checks should be put in place to ensure that those who need the support get it when they need it, and when they are ready to take back control, they are also able to as well. Thank you everyone who has chosen to tune into today's episode of the Toasted Tale podcast. I really enjoyed learning a bit more about the conservatorship issue. It affects a lot of people, and I feel like the more understanding we have about the problems, the better equipped we are in fixing them. If you enjoyed today's Toasted Tale podcast, then you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. My handle is @podcasttale. It's there where new episodes are released every Tuesday, and I also post on there anything I find interesting at the time. Follow me @podcasttale for more. Liking, commenting and sharing your favourite episodes of the show is also a great way of letting me know what you are liking and what you are not finding interesting. All feedback is greatly appreciated. I really love learning about new subjects, but doing it alongside you all is really awesome, so thank you again for listening. I look forward to speaking to you all again soon, and I hope that you find success in all you attempt today. Until next time, I've been Jim. I will speak to you again soon for another toasted tale by the fireside.